In this sublesson, we are going to look at one of the most common network management tools for Nexus switches, known as the Dcnm. The Dcnm, or Data Center Network Manager tool, is a network management platform that provides capabilities for orchestrating and managing the configuration on Nexus switches as well as MDS switches. The Dcnm tool allows us to build multiple fabrics or multi-tenant fabric along with performing SAN configuration management. The Dcnm tool also helps with fabric management, such as monitoring the health and alerts or notifications on the devices. The Dcnm tool comes with trend analysis capabilities and automation capabilities, along with visualizations which allow us to easily troubleshoot the network. The Dcnm tool can be deployed in one of the 4 variants, such as classical LAN, LAN fabric, which deals with VXLAN, EVPN, or multi-site solutions, media controller, which deals with managing the media networks, and SAN management for managing the SAN networks. We'll now take a quick overview of how the Dcnm tool looks like. So we are on the Dcnm login prompt, and the Dcnm tool can be deployed on the physical hardware or can also be deployed as a virtual machine on your hypervisor. So we can log in onto the Dcnm tool and say, with the username and password, and once we log in onto the Dcnm tool, we have the Dcnm licenses, Fabric Builder, networks and VRFs, and the documentation. So the documentation can be used to get familiar with the Dcnm tool, but let me walk you through the UI components that are available, or features that are available with the Dcnm tool. So first is the dashboard. The dashboard shows you the critical information about the devices that are managed by the Dcnm tool, and also gives you the overview or the performance of the data center. If you have mapped any location for the data center, you can see the devices in the network map. And then you can look at the link traffics that you're monitoring, audit logs, and even the server status of how the database server is looking like, and get a more holistic view from the Dcnm tool. If there are critical events or errors or warnings, you can see on the dashboard itself. Then moving on to the topology view, the topology view gives you access to the complete topology view of the fabric that you're managing. Right now, there are no devices that are being managed, so we do not see any devices as part of the Dcnm tool, but once the fabric or devices are added, you will get the views and their status and their information on the topology view itself. We then have the control menu, which has certain submenus like fabrics, management, template library, image management, endpoint locator, and LAN telemetry. So the fabrics allows you to perform or build the fabric using the Fabric Builder. If you go onto the Fabric Builder, we have the Fabric Builder, and on clicking the Fabric Builder, it takes the name and the template. Based on the template, it gives you several options. So let me walk you through let me help you get a quick view of the template. So we say temp fabric, and say we select the easy fabric. So it gives you the option for like BGP, fabric interface numberings, the IGP or the link state protocol that we want to run, OSPF or IS2IS, if there are route reflectors, any cached gateway MAC addresses, or software version that you need to maintain. Then you have the replication. You want either multicast replication or ingress replication for VXLAN. Do you want to have VPC or not? And then you have your advanced configuration of how the site ID or the loopback interfaces should look like, along with area IDs for OSPF, a lot of information that you can get from here. And if you want to add some freeform or template configuration, you can add it under these text boxes. Then you have the resources where you can define your loopback address IP address range, your VTEP IP address range, the rendezvous point address range. So a lot of things that you can define from here. Even your layer 2 and layer 3 VNI information you can define from this tab. If I look at the external fabric 11.1, and I can see I have very minimal options, such as the BGPS number. We are enabling the fabric monitor mode and fabric send community options with both, and VPC peer link if there are any, and the sub-interfaces or the DCI links and the subnet that is part of it. And finally, we have the MSD fabric mode, which is giving us our layer 2 segment ID and layer 3 segment ID range with the multi-site routing loopback IDs. And then we have on the DCI side, we have the border gateway method, which can be manual or using a route server method. If you have a route server with multiple sites, you can use this option and define the route server list, how the list is going to look like, and the route server ASN number. And finally, under the resources, you have your multi-site loopback IP. So the loopback address that you defined, loopback 100 here, under the resources, you define the IP address for that loopback 100 on how it's going to look like. So that's the fabric builder component under the control, which allows you to build the fabric. And then you have the interfaces. Once you have the devices that you're managing, then you can add interfaces to those devices and perform configurations such as by creating a port channel, a VPC, a FEX, a loopback, or sub-interface. So various configuration options are available with this. And you can look at the preview of the configurations once you are completed with the configuration and then deploy the configuration. And then you have the networks and VRFs. So when you deploy the fabric, you need to select the fabric, and then you can create the VRFs and deploy or create the new VRFs and deploy those new VRFs onto the fabric nodes. These VRFs are basically used for creating tenants. So you can use those. And then under the management, we have our resources. Under the resources, we can see various options about the resource allocation. And we have the virtual machine manager. Here we can try to connect the vCenter and get details about the servers or virtual machines from the vCenter directly into our Dcnm tool. So I can try to show you an example. Let's say from here you can add the vCenter server, username, and password. And once you do that, you can look at all the virtual machines under the vCenter server that are currently present. And then we have the template library. The template library has different set of configurations for deployment purposes, so you can look through those or even edit those configuration modules as per your requirement. And this was just an example, so we can go back and we have all our library templates. The Dcnm tool also allows you to perform image management. That means you can manage the software upgrades for the devices that you're managing using Dcnm. You can upload the new images here and then perform upgrades from the devices that are listed under your software upgrade tasks. And then we have the endpoint locator, under which we can configure the endpoint locator to track the location of the endpoints that are connected to your fabric. So if they have moved, like something like vMotion has happened, any of those things, we can get to know about their location. And then we have the LAN telemetry, which allows you to configure telemetry in your fabric and get the data directly on to the Dcnm from your Nexus switches. Then we have the monitor menu item, under which we have our inventory. We are having switches or the modules or even the licenses. We can monitor all the states of the licenses or the switches or the modules. And then we have, when we are monitoring the switch itself for the CPU, memory, traffic, temperature, accounting, or events. And you can manage the LAN for Ethernet, link, or VPC. Based on what VPC configuration you have deployed using Dcnm, you can monitor it from here. You can also monitor your endpoint locator, so you can explore this part and even monitor or get the data from the LAN telemetry that you have configured. The alarms will help you view what alarms are populated or you're receiving on your fabric or your setup. And then under administration, we have our Dcnm server. We have the server status on how the server is running and what is its state, if the performance collection is being enabled or not, or it's running or not. So you can look at that information. And then you have the Dcnm server logs that allow you to get details into the events of the Dcnm server itself. Then you have the server properties, and you can set some of these properties based on how you want to operate or change things on the settings. And then you have the modular device support, under which you have your Dcnm server, and there are no patches currently or the selected server, so it's not in use right now. And license, you can manage the license from here. You can select the switches or VDCs that you're managing, and based on that, you can add the licenses. So if you have smart license contract, you can add the smart license connection, or connect the smart license from your Dcnm server, or you can also add your license files to the administration tool. And then you have the native HA or multi-site manager. The multi-site manager is used when you have the multi-site deployed. Right now we are not using it, so we can easily ignore it for now. But it has a lot of options. In the Dcnm, you can also configure the AAA configuration or the different authentication methods. So you have your local user, admin, and root. So you can use those, and apart from that, you have your clients. Your client is the server itself. If there are multiple clients that you're managing from the Dcnm server window, you can have that as well. And then you have the performance setup, event setups. For that, you can do the registration, the forwarding, and suppression. And then you can set up the LAN credentials here, the username and password that will be used by the devices. So a lot of options available in Dcnm. So this version that we are using is, I believe, version 10.x, but you can upgrade to the newer version, which is 11.x, which gives you more enhanced capabilities and options than the version that we are seeing right now.